Hello, my friend. I'm Paul. Welcome to Night of Tales, a quiet refuge for imagination and dreams. Set aside your worries, as tonight we journey together through worlds of magic, mystery, and wonder. Lie back, relax, and let the tales carry you away. Tonight we venture into the monster-haunted world of The Witcher. The rain had stopped an hour before dawn. Geralt stood at the edge of the limestone quarry and watched mist rise from the Ponder Valley below. His medallion vibrated against his chest. Something dead was moving down there. The Witcher had arrived in Vengerberg 3 days earlier. The city still bore scars from the war. Burned buildings stood like broken teeth along the southern wall. Refugees filled the lower districts. The smell of sickness hung in the air. The merchant guild had found him in a tavern near the docks. Their spokesman was a thin man with nervous hands. He placed a purse of coins on the table between them. 6 caravans had been attacked on the eastern road. The creatures came at night. They were pale and hunched. They had spikes growing from their shoulders and backs. The guards who survived spoke of impossible strength and terrible hunger. Geralt had listened without interruption. He knew what hunted that road. The description matched creatures he had killed many times before. Algals, necrophages that fed on the dead and grew bold when food was plentiful. The merchant explained that refugees had used the old quarry as a burial site. Plague had swept through their camps during the winter. Hundreds had died. The bodies were dumped into the limestone pits because the ground was too frozen to dig proper graves. Geralt had accepted the contract. The price was fair. The work was necessary. He had gathered his potions and oils and set out at dusk. Now he stood above the quarry and studied the terrain. The excavation was old, perhaps 50 years abandoned. The limestone walls dropped 30 feet to a floor littered with rubble and broken equipment. 3 tunnel mouths gaped in the northern face. The bodies would be inside those passages where the stone stayed cool. He descended carefully. The path was slick with morning dew. His boots found purchase on exposed stone. His hand rested on the hilt of his silver sword. The first body lay 20 paces from the tunnel entrance. It had been a man once. Now it was meat and bones scattered across the limestone. The skull was cracked open. The brain was gone. Geralt crouched beside the remains. The bones showed tooth marks. Deep gouges where something had worried the flesh from the skeleton. He recognized the pattern. Algals were methodical feeders. They stripped their prey completely. He moved toward the tunnel mouth. The darkness inside was absolute. He drew his silver sword and muttered a spell. His pupils dilated until his eyes caught every fragment of light. The world became shades of gray. The tunnel stretched 30 feet before branching. The floor was covered in loose stone and something else. He knelt and touched the ground. His fingers came away sticky. Blood. Old blood mixed with other fluids. The trail led deeper into the earth. His medallion hummed steadily. The vibration told him what his eyes could not yet see. Multiple creatures. Close. Perhaps resting after a night of hunting. Gerald followed the left branch. The passage narrowed. The ceiling dropped until he had to duck his head. The smell grew stronger. Rot and decay and something sharper. The musk of living things that made their homes among the dead. The chamber opened suddenly. It had been a storage room once. Now it was a charnel house. Bodies were piled against the walls. Some were old, reduced to bone and leather. Others were fresh. He counted perhaps 40 corpses in various states of decomposition. Movement caught his eye. A pale shape unfolded from behind the largest pile. It rose on bent legs. Bone spikes jutted from its hunched shoulders. Its eyes were milky white. Its mouth opened to reveal rows of needle teeth. The algal hissed. The sound echoed in the confined space. Tyrrell raised his sword and waited. The creature did not charge. It circled slowly, testing him, looking for weakness. Two more emerged from the shadows. They moved with disturbing coordination. Pack hunters, intelligent enough to flank their prey. Tyrrell backed toward the tunnel entrance. Fighting 3 algals in an enclosed space was suicide. He needed room to maneuver. He needed to separate them. The largest algal rushed forward. Tyrrell swept his blade in a low arc. The silver edge caught the creature across its extended arm. Black blood sprayed across the limestone. The algal shrieked and fell back. The witcher turned and ran. Tyrrell burst from the tunnel into gray morning light. The 3 algals followed. Their claws scraped against stone. Their breathing was a wet rasp that filled the quarry. He had prepared for this. The night before he had scouted the quarry floor. He had identified positions, places where the terrain favored him. Now he ran toward the nearest vantage point. A pile of broken equipment stood near the southern wall. Old mining carts lay on their sides. Wooden beams jutted at angles from the rubble. The space between the carts created natural choke points. He vaulted over a cart and spun to face his pursuers. The algals slowed. They spread out. The wounded one hung back. The other 2 advanced from different angles. Gerald had fought necrophages for decades. He knew their patterns. They were strong but not particularly fast. They rely on numbers and endurance. Their bone spikes were defensive weapons. When threatened, they could project them outward with lethal force. The key was preventing that defense. Keep them off balance. Strike before they could trigger their natural armor. The algol on his left lunged. Geralt sidestepped and brought his blade down on its neck. The silver sword bit deep. The creature's head hung at an angle. Black blood poured from the wound. It collapsed without a sound. The second algol was already moving. Its claws raked across his shoulder. The leather armor absorbed most of the impact, but pain flared hot and immediate. Geralt twisted away and thrust upward. His blade pierced the creature's chest. It screamed and thrashed. He pulled the sword free and struck again. The head separated from the body. The wounded algol watched from 20 paces away, its milky eyes fixed on the Witcher. It made no move to attack. Instead, it turned and fled back toward the tunnels. Geralt wiped his blade clean and considered his options. He could pursue the creature, hunt it through the passages while it was alone and injured. But there would be others deeper in the warren. The merchant had spoken of multiple attacks. That meant a larger pack than 3 individuals. He needed information. He needed to understand the full scope of the infestation before committing to a direct assault. The Witcher spent the next hour exploring the quarry. He found 4 more tunnel entrances. 2 showed clear signs of regular use. Tracks in the dust. Dried blood on the stone. The algols had established multiple access points to their nest. He also found evidence of their hunting range. Torn clothing and broken weapons littered the eastern edge where the old road passed closest to the quarry. The creatures were ambushing travelers from above, dragging them down into the limestone pits. By midday, Geralt had formed a clear picture. The pack numbered at least 8 individuals, possibly more. They had claimed the entire tunnel network as their territory. The dominant male would be the largest, the one with the most developed bone ridges. Kill the alpha and the rest would scatter. But finding the alpha meant going deep into the nest. It meant fighting in darkness on their ground. The risk was substantial. Geralt returned to his camp at the quarry's edge. He had supplies cached in a crevice beneath an overhang. Oil for his blade. Potions for strength and healing. Bombs filled with compounds that burn necrophage flesh. He worked methodically, coating his silver sword with thick black oil that stank of sulfur and rendered fat, drinking a potion that tasted like poison and felt like fire in his veins. His heart rate increased. His pupils contracted to slits. His muscles tense with unnatural strength. The transformation lasted hours. During that time, he would be faster and stronger than any human. He would heal from wounds that would kill an ordinary man. But the price was paid in pain. Every potion burned through his system like acid. Every enhancement pushed his body closer to its breaking point. Witchers were mutants, created through trial in chemistry and magic, built to hunt monsters. But they were still mortal, still capable of dying. Geralt had seen too many of his brothers fall to ever forget that simple truth. He waited until the sun began its descent. Algals were nocturnal by preference, but not strictly so. They could function in daylight. They would simply be slower, more lethargic. That small advantage might mean the difference between success and failure. As shadows lengthened across the quarry floor, Geralt descended once more into the tunnels. The passages formed a maze beneath the quarry. Geralt moved through them with careful deliberation. His enhanced vision turned absolute darkness into shades of gray. His hearing caught every scrape and shuffle. He found the first Algol in a side chamber. It was feeding on something that might have been human once. The creature looked up as he entered. Blood dripped from its mouth. It made no move to flee or fight, simply watched him with those dead white eyes. Geralt killed it quickly. A single thrust through the skull. The body collapsed across its meal. He moved on without pause. The second and third were sleeping in a natural cavity where the limestone had eroded away. They woke as his blade found them. Their death screams echoed through the passages. Somewhere deeper in the earth, other creatures would hear. They would know an intruder had entered their domain. Geralt welcomed this. He wanted them aware. He wanted them angry. Angry creatures made mistakes. The tunnel sloped downward. The air grew colder. Water dripped from the ceiling and pooled in depressions worn into the stone. His boots splashed through shallow puddles. The sound carried in the confined space. A junction appeared ahead, four passages branching in different directions. Geralt paused and extended his senses. His medallion vibrated against his chest. The tremor was strongest toward the right passage. That way led to the largest concentration of creatures. He took the right path. The passage widened after 20 paces. The ceiling rose. He emerged into a natural cavern that the quarry excavation had intersected decades ago. The space was vast, perhaps 50 feet across. The floor was covered in bones. 5 Algals waited in the darkness. They stood in a loose semicircle. The largest occupied the center position. It was massive, easily 7 feet tall when fully extended. Bone spikes covered its shoulders and back like armor. Some were as thick as sword blades. Its eyes held an intelligence that the others lacked. The alpha, the pack leader, the creature that had claimed this territory and organized the hunting parties. Tyrrell raised his sword. The algals began to spread out. They were trying to surround him, cut off his retreat, force him into the center of the cavern where they could attack from all sides. He would not allow this. He moved toward the nearest creature and struck before it could react. His blade opened its throat. Black blood fountained across the bone-strewn floor. The algal fell. The others rushed forward. Tyrrell retreated toward the passage entrance. He needed the narrow space. Needed to prevent them from flanking him. Two algals reached him simultaneously. He parried the first claws and kicked the second's knee. Bone cracked. The creature went down. He finished it with a downward thrust. The third algal triggered its defensive spikes. The bone protrusions extended outward with explosive force. Tyrrell threw himself sideways. One spike grazed his ribs. Pain lanced through his side. He rolled to his feet and swung his blade in a wide arc. The silver edge caught the algal's neck. The head tumbled across the floor. Two remained, the alpha and one other. Now they circled him warily. They had seen 3 of their pack die in as many minutes. Instinct warred with hunger in their primitive minds. The smaller algal broke first. It charged with claws extended. Tyrrell met the charge. His blade found its heart. The creature collapsed against him. He pushed the body aside and faced the alpha. The massive algal had not moved. It stood in the center of the cavern and watched, calculating, measuring. This creature had survived long enough to become dominant. It would not make careless mistakes. Tyrrell approached slowly, his sword held ready, his breathing controlled despite the exertion. The potion in his system continued to burn. His heart hammered against his ribs, but his hands were steady. The alpha moved with shocking speed. It covered the distance between them in 2 long strides. Its claws swept toward his face. Tyrrell ducked and thrust upward. His blade scraped across the creature's ribs but failed to penetrate deeply. The bone spikes provided too much protection. They separated, circled. The alpha's milky eyes never left him. Its breathing was a wet rattle. Tyrrell noticed wounds along its flanks, old scars from previous fights. This creature had bowed before, had killed before, would kill again if given the chance. The alpha feinted left and struck right. Tyrrell barely avoided the blow. Claws tore through his leather armor. Blood ran hot down his side. He stumbled backward and the alcohol pressed its advantage. It was trying to force him against the cavern wall. Trap him. Remove his mobility. Gerald saw the strategy forming. The creature was more intelligent than he had anticipated. It was not simply reacting. It was planning, adapting. He changed tactics. Instead of retreating, he advanced, drove forward inside the Alpha's reach. His shoulders slammed into the creature's chest. They went down together. Bones crunched beneath them. They rolled across the cavern floor, each struggling for position. The Alpha's jaws snapped inches from his face. Its breath reeked of decay. Its claws raked his back. Darrell brought his knee up hard. Found something vital. The creature shrieked. Its grip loosened. The Witcher broke free and scrambled to his feet. His sword lay 3 paces away. The Alpha was already rising. Blood dripped from its mouth. Its bone spikes were beginning to extend. The defensive response triggering. Darrell dove for his weapon. His fingers closed around the hilt. He rolled onto his back as the Alpha lunged. Bone spikes shot outward. He raised the blade and 2 spikes impaled themselves on the silver edge. The momentum drove the sword deep into the creature's chest. The Alpha's eyes went wide. It tried to pull away, but the blade was lodged between its ribs. Black blood poured over Geralt's hands. The creature's weight pressed down on him. Its claws twitched weakly. Geralt twisted the blade, found the heart. The Alpha's body went rigid, then slack. The light faded from its eyes. The Witcher pushed the massive corpse aside and lay still. Pain radiated from a dozen wounds. The potion in his system was fading. Exhaustion crashed over him like a wave. He forced himself to move, forced himself to stand. The cavern was silent except for his labored breathing. 6 dead uggles lay scattered across the bone-strewn floor. The pack was broken. Any survivors would flee rather than face the creature that had killed their Alpha. Geralt retrieved his sword and began the long climb back to the surface. His body protested every step. Blood loss made him dizzy, but he had survived. The contract would be fulfilled. He emerged from the tunnel as the sun touched the western horizon. The quarry was bathed in red light. He made his way to his camp and collapsed against the stone. His hands shook as he reached for a healing potion. The liquid burned going down, but the pain in his wounds began to fade. Night fell. Stars appeared overhead. Geralt cleaned and dressed his injuries. The worst was the gash along his ribs. It would scar, add to the collection that covered his body. each mark a reminder of hunts survived, monsters killed, prices paid. He thought about the merchant's words. The refugees who had used this quarry as a burial ground. They had been fleeing war and plague, seeking safety, finding only more death. The algals had been drawn by the bodies, had grown strong on the feast provided. It was a pattern he had seen many times. War created monsters, not just the obvious kind that walked on four legs and fed on corpses, but the invisible kind, the hunger and desperation that drove people to take shortcuts, to make choices that seemed reasonable at the time but carried terrible consequences. Burying plague victims in an abandoned quarry seemed practical, quick, efficient. No one had considered what might be drawn to such bounty. No one had thought about the creatures that thrived in places where death accumulated. Gerald knew he could not stop the cycle, could not prevent every tragedy, but he could clean up the aftermath, could kill the things that emerged from human mistakes. It was the purpose for which he had been created, the reason witchers existed. Morning brought clarity and persistent pain. Gerald's wounds had closed but remained tender. He would need days to fully recover. But the contract required completion. He needed to verify the nest was destroyed and collect his payment. He descended into the tunnels one final time, moving slowly, checking each passage, each chamber. The bodies of the algals he had killed remained where they had fallen. No scavengers had touched them yet. The reek of death would keep most creatures away. He found 2 more algals in the deepest part of the warren. They were young, perhaps a season old. When they sensed him, they fled through a narrow crack in the limestone. He let them go. They posed no threat without the pack structure, would likely die within days competing with other scavengers. The cavern where he had killed the alpha showed signs of long occupation. Gnawed bones formed drifts against the walls. Scraps of cloth and leather were woven into crude nests. The algals had been established here for months, perhaps since the first bodies were dumped above. Gerald gathered wood from the broken mining equipment and built a pyre in the center of the cavern. He dragged the alpha's corpse onto the pile, added the others. Necrophages burned poorly, but he had compounds that would help. He poured oil over the bodies and struck a flame. Smoke filled the cavern. He retreated to the passage entrance and watched the fire consume the pack. The flames would burn for hours, would spread through the tunnels and sterilize the nest. Nothing would want to den here after this. When he emerged from the quarry, the sun stood high overhead. Gerald gathered his equipment and began the walk back to Vengerberg. His body ached, but his mind was clear. The contract was complete. The road would be safe. He reached the city at dusk, found the merchant guild's representative in the same tavern where they had first met. The thin man with nervous hands listened to his report, examined the alpha's fangs that Giro presented as proof, counted out the agreed payment plus a small bonus. The man asked if the threat was truly eliminated. Giro told him the pack was destroyed, but the root problem remained. As long as bodies were dumped in the quarry, new creatures would be drawn. The site needed proper consecration. The dead needed to be exhumed and burned according to custom. The merchant promised to relay this advice to the city council. Geralt suspected nothing would be done. Such projects required resources and coordination. The city was still rebuilding, still absorbing refugees. Dealing with the dead would be a low priority until the next attack. He left the tavern and found lodging in the lower city, a small room above a stable. Clean enough, quiet. He ate bread and cheese, drank water, avoided alcohol until his wounds were fully healed. That night he cleaned his equipment, oiled his blades, repaired his damaged armor. The work was meditative, familiar. It connected him to every night before and every night to come. An endless cycle of preparation and action, hunt and recovery, death and survival. Geralt thought about the refugees who had created this problem. He felt no anger toward them. They had done what was necessary to survive, had made the best choice available in terrible circumstances. That their solution had consequences was not their fault. It was simply the nature of the world. Actions created reactions. Death attracted predators. His role was not to judge, not to assign blame, simply to hunt, to kill the things that emerged from chaos, to stand between humanity and the darkness that always waited at the edges. It was enough. It had to be. It was all he knew. All he had ever known since the trials had transformed him from boy to mutant, from human to witcher. A creature neither fully one thing nor another, belonging nowhere, needed everywhere. He finished his work and lay down to rest. Tomorrow he would check the notice boards, see what new contracts had been posted, what new monsters needed killing. The work never ended. There was always another hunt, always another threat. He was tired, had been tired for longer than he could remember. But tired was better than useless, better than obsolete. As long as monsters existed, witchers had purpose, had a place in the world, however marginal, however temporary, but it was enough.